Again, this is one of my go-to recipes when I'm trying to use up different odds and ends in the kitchen, and create like sort of this monster hybrid salad that is a little more filling. And so what we're going to do is make sort of a take on the classic Panzanella salad. Now, Panzanella salad is a sort of Tuscan bread salad, and it was typically made using some of leftover stale bread that kind of went a little hard, maybe some odds and ends of vegetables, whatever you had available, maybe some beans, and mixing it together to sort of create this hearty pantry salad. So that's what we're going to do today. And again, we're using odds and ends that I have in my fridge, but you can adapt this to what you have in your fridge. So yeah, we'll get started. Unless Steph,
I think, one of the things that this salad is based on is, that healthy plate. Okay, so when you think about, meals that you're creating, we talk about having at least half the plate coming from color. So those are your vegetables, could be fruit too. But, most of us eat vegetables like lunch and dinner time. So, really focusing on those colors. So, all vegetables and fruit are going to have fiber, of course, varying amounts. But, you don't have to stick to a specific one or color, just kind of making sure you kind of have the color of the rainbow is what we're aiming for. And then the other quarter of your plate coming from protein. So this can be things like lentils or beans, so those plant-based proteins, or things that are animal-based like chicken or fish, eggs, cheese, right? And then the other quarter of the plate coming from those high fiber starches. So that could be things like whole grains. It could be whole grain bread. It could be wild rice or quinoa. It could be whole grain pastas. So, whether you're putting this in a bowl, in a smoothie, into a sandwich, you do want to think about having those portions within kind of every meal that you're eating. So that's kind of one of the reasons I love a good hearty salad that include like this specific dish, because it's including all those elements of bringing a balanced meal together.
Yeah, awesome. So what we're going to start off with for this salad is our dressing. And it's, again, very, very simple dressing. Got a little bit of olive oil in there. A little bit is maybe different for me than it is for everyone else, but so it might look like a lot. But we're making a big, big salad here, and the dressing is super important. I'll tell you why in a second. So we have about 3 tablespoons-ish of olive oil. Not really measuring anything here. Try to go by taste. I'm going to add a little bit of vinegar as well, about half the amount. Or if you like a little more acidic, go 2 tablespoons maybe instead of 1.5. I'll go a little more. And you can use anything acidic here. So lemon juice is really good. You can throw that in if you have that. If you have like balsamic vinegar, go with that. Any vinegar, acid will work really well for dressing here. I'm going to go with a little pinch of salt. And that's it. If you have like dried herbs, you can absolutely add that at this point. We'll give it a little whisk just to try to emulsify the dressing, so you can see how the olive oil and the vinegar were separate before, but giving it a little bit of agitation, a little whisk here, and it's going to come together. And now we can start adding all of our ingredients. So I'll move this off to the side. And the first thing that I do want to start off with are some onion. So we'll slice those and add them first. The reason why is because raw onion especially, can become a little harsh. They can taste a little harsh you can imagine as you're cutting onion, you know, the feeling you get with your eyes, and you start like bawling and crying, which is healthy and good to do every once in a while, but we don't want it to taste like that. So adding it to the dressing at the beginning is going to mute that sort of harshness. It's going to cut through that a little bit. It's going to make them a little softer. It's going to bring out that sweetness in the onion. So that's the first thing we're going to add to this. And you can give it a little toss in there. Let that chill out. The next thing we're going to add is our bread component. So this is a bread salad. You don't have to add bread. This is, you know, just part of the traditional thing. You know, I'm sure, you know, you're not going to get the Italian recipe police knocking at your door saying you have to use bread. If you have a little bit of leftover pita, throw some pita in there. Or if you have even, you know, some pasta and you want to throw that in there. I think to Stephanie's point, we're trying to keep it balanced. So we're trying to put a whole grain in there, but it can be anything, even some couscous. If you have some leftover dried couscous or some leftover quinoa in the fridge, toss that in. Beautiful. Make it your own. We have a little bit of bread here. And what I did, so this is just like a whole grain bread. It wasn't stale, and you want it to be, the purpose of having it stale a little bit harder is so that your salad doesn't get soggy, because you don't want the bread to kind of become mushy and kind of fall apart. So if it's still like a fresh bread, and apparently everyone's making sourdough and bread, so you probably should have some available. What you can do is cube it up. And if you know you're making it the next day, if you're making it a little later, just cube it up and just toss it in your oven. It doesn't even have to be on. Just toss it in your oven and it'll dry out, and you'll get these almost like little crunchy croutons, which is exactly what we want for this type of salad. We want it to hold up. So I'm going to add the bread in. Beautiful. I just realized you can see my socks in the video, and I'm wearing 2 different color socks, but hey, what are you going to do? Okay, now for any of the, so you know what we're going to do is we're actually add some beans at this point. Like Steph said, this is, you know, little protein here. You can add chickpeas. You can add even cooked lentils. These are just canned white kidney beans, drained and rinsed. Yeah. And so we'll put some there.
And just again on that topic, like, we're draining and rinsing just because it's stored in that liquid, but also because usually for preservation, they add a little bit of sodium. So, you know, sometimes it's reduced sodium, but always just a good idea to drain and rinse regardless.
Awesome. So that goes in. And at this point, the onions, especially the bread, they're going to start to soak up some of that dressing. So you can kind of let that sit off to the side. And then whatever veg you have on hand. And this is supposed to be sort of, you know, very roughly chopped. So I like doing big chunks. And I have a little bit of cucumber. So I'm going to add that. At its very basic, most of the traditional panzanella salad is usually just tomato, maybe some onion, some bread, and a dressing. So it can be very simple, or if you want to make it super colorful, you know, add whatever veg you like. Again, it adds a piece of pepper in the fridge. So big chunks of the pepper are going to go in. Beautiful. I have some cherry tomatoes, which I already cut up, so you don't have to sift through that. Awesome. That's going to go in. And here's where we're at. So pretty colorful, lots of veg, got that whole grain bread, the beans in there. It already looks like an amazing, delicious salad. And we can sort of add some fresh herbs or dried herbs to flavor it up if we want. One extra thing that I'm going to add, and this is, again, it's because I have one and it's ripe, so I want to use it. probably not very traditional for an Italian panzanella to add avocado, but hey, we're breaking the rules here. We're going to change it up. And I want to use avocado because I actually want to teach you a safe way to cut an avocado. We like avocado, super tasty, delicious. I don't know if you knew that avocado injuries are one of the most common kitchen-related injuries that ERs tend to see. And it's, you can imagine if you've ever cut an avocado before, you're holding it in your hand, you're bringing the knife towards your hand, and you're slicing around. Anytime you have the knife close to your hand, it's probably not a good idea. So I'm going to show you a very, very quick and easy way to cut this avocado. And the trick is really just to keep the knife blade away from your hand. So we're going to have the avocado flat on the cutting board. And with my hand on top, let me see if I can get this closer. Okay, there we go. Knife on top, hand on top, and I'm going to carefully slice and push until I hit the pit in the middle. And then I'm going to roll the knife around. Again, my fingers are away from the blade. So the blade is never aiming or directed towards my hand. It's always facing down towards the cutting board. Okay, so keep rolling around until you match the other side here. And then we can twist it, and that'll open up. Beautiful. And then at that point, we're going to take the pit out. Again, common injury, you're holding it in your hand. You got the knife, maybe you've had a margarita or two, and you're trying to take the pit out, and you're smacking that blade near your hand. Never a good idea. So keep the pit and the avocado on the cutting board, and aim to hit it from here. That way my hand is out of the way. If I miss, that's fine, but at least I'm missing on the cutting board. So pit goes in, twist, and pit comes out. And we have our two avocado ready to go. Beautiful. Now, last part, not done yet. The pit, if it's stuck onto the knife pretty good and you're trying to pull it off, again, really easy to kind of cut yourself there. So what you do is pit down, always having that blade of the knife pointing towards the cutting board, hand on top, and just give it a nice smack on top of the knife. And you cut the pit in half, it releases the pit, and that's good for compost.
Another thing I want to share is that your avocados, again, source of fiber, and also healthy fats, right? So, always just thinking about having those unsaturated fats. Where can you get them from? Good source of energy. So those are really a great way. And I personally find that avocados make a salad kind of more creamy, right, because of the fats. So, it's also boosting flavor, adding some texture, which also makes the salad more fun.
See a couple comments there from Virtual Dinner Party. I always do it the dangerous way. That's okay. I do it that way sometimes too when I'm in a rush, but it's always good to try to practice knife safety when you can. So give it a shot next time. All right, so quick little dice, and I'm going to add that to our sort of hybrid panzanella salad here. Beautiful. And again, super colorful. And yeah, like Steph said, as you toss this, especially if it's a ripe avocado, it's going to add to that creaminess in the dressing. All right. So here we go. Looking super colorful. Awesome. So I'm going to toss this up. And we're going to use these fun little tongs. They're like little hands that my cousin actually got us. And we're going to give it just a toss from the bottom through so that we can sort of mix that dressing and let that sort of coat all the other ingredients. And at this point, like I only added a little bit of salt to the dressing, but you're gonna wanna taste it for seasoning and then adjust if needed. All right.
The other thing is that, you know, a lot of people think salad, they think leafy greens, spinach, kale, lettuce, which are all great, and you certainly can add that to the salad. But I find sometimes not using those items actually makes the salad a little bit more interesting when you don't have the spinach or the, you know, those leafy greens. So just as I like this as a kind of a spin kind of on the salad. So we just received a question: should we avoid adding cheese? Does that lead to inflammation? So I would say if you are okay, you know, in terms of the lactose in cheese, you know, it doesn't cause any tummy issues, you certainly can add it in. It also adds in some flavor. So having like, you know, 2 or 3 servings of cheese or, you know, dairy throughout your day is certainly okay. Whenever we're having cheese, you know, it does have higher amounts of saturated fat. So I always tell people, not that it's because it's a bad food to have. I don't like to talk about that foods in that way. But I do want you to control portion sizes. So I would say 2 fingers, so your middle finger and your pointer finger, which is about 50 grams, is a good way to gauge the portion of cheese. And it's also adding protein to that dish. So again, kind of just thinking of like what other things are you having throughout the day? How much cheese did you eat? But certainly this is a great way to add protein and also flavor to the food.
And speaking on that note, we are adding a little bit of cheese, and we're going, one of our favorites, this is Parmesan cheese. So Parmesan cheese, a few reasons why we love it. Like I was saying before in the first recipe, with the miso paste, Parmesan cheese has a ton of umami flavor, so a ton of savoriness, and a little bit goes a long way. So we don't actually need a lot to add to this dish to actually bump up and boost a lot of the flavor there. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to grate some in. And again, this part is obviously optional. Like Steph said, if you can't tolerate cheese or you just don't like cheese, you don't have to add it. I'm eating this for lunch, so I'm adding it. All right, a little bit of that parm in there. And if you have any herbs, then you can go with that too. I only had a little bit of mint and some basil left, so maybe not as much as I would usually add, but it's gonna have to do. So we're gonna give it a last little gentle toss. I wanna see some of those nice herbs on top though, so I'm not gonna do too much, but there we go, there we have it. And not only, like Steph said, super hearty type of salad, no cook recipe, really. It's just assembly. And if you have, some of those pantry items like canned beans, even like canned tuna, throw in like a can of tuna here, and it would be super, super tasty as well. And just assemble and enjoy. The wonderful thing about this salad as well is that it'll actually taste better the next day. So making a big salad like this is great. I'll enjoy a little bit now, and then you can leave this in the fridge for up to 3 days, no problem, and the flavors will actually improve day by day. So great recipe to make a big batch of and enjoy the leftovers. There we go. Recipe number 2 down. Thank you. Can you please say how it tastes? All right. I don't usually do this in our class, but I'm at home, so. super tasty. I got a piece of the avocado in there, so creamy. That Parmesan cheese, again, I didn't add a lot for a big bowl of salad, but it really sort of bumps up that savoriness. So really, really like that. I'd probably add a little more vinegar to this. Again, you know, I didn't measure anything out. Adjust to your taste. So yeah, a little bit more vinegar in there to bump up the acidity would be perfect. But there we go. Recipe 2 number down. If anyone has any questions about this one, you can write it in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next recipe.